staying on pop culture a little bit longer here. Diddy. Let me see. So let me make this. Can I? No, I can't. So I'm just going to do it this way.
Files. Okay, that's
All
going
right.
where?
So Diddy files $1 billion lawsuit against Netflix over 50 Cent's documentary called The Reckoning that is still number one on Netflix. So it says Sean Diddy Combs is threatening to sue Netflix for airing docuseries that is, to say the least, unflattering to him. The music mogul cease and desist letter claims the series Sean The Reckoning uses stolen footage. The footage includes Combs launching into a tyrant against former Danny Kane and Diddy Dirty Money artist Dawn Richards after learning of her sexual harassment lawsuit against him and strategizing with attorneys days before his September 24 arrest. Asked how he got the footage, executive producer 50 Cent. Hold on for a second. Too much feedback. Asked how he got the footage, executive producer 50 Cent Jackson declined to answer, explaining, I figured most journalists would not disclose their sources. Side note, some federal appealing judges could learn a thing or two without about journalist source confidentiality from Jackson. I don't know why they put that there.
New
Uh,
York Times versus Sullivan, U.S. Supreme Court, 1962. It lays it out in pretty large detail. So, yeah, I
well,
doubt this is going anywhere.
Well, it says Michael Aberlis, a documentarian who Combs hired to film, blamed a freelancer who said he hired to briefly fill in for him while he was away. In any event, series director Alexandra Stapleton says her team obtained the footage lawfully. Assuming Stapleton is telling the truth, Combs argued that Netflix is responsible for her source alleged misconduct shouldn't fare well. It was rejected by the Supreme Court in 2001 case Barnicki versus Whooper, and for a good reason. The media has a First Amendment right to publish. Combs
Mhm.
Combs, of course, thinks the rules don't apply to him, hence the current address in the federal whatever. But the same reasoning that protected the Pennsylvania radio host reporting on illegal recorded conversations about school union negotiations in the Bart Nickel case also protects streaming giants airing docuseries about alleged predatory celebrities. Have you heard of that case?
Mhm.
Then Bart
And all
Nickel.
it does basically is reiterate New York Times versus Sullivan, where they discuss public figures.
Mhm.
I think he's upset about that, him and his girlfriend having that gigolo come in the cup and then them swallowing it. Wasn't that what he was talking about on this thing?
Yeah, so apparently it says uh, unless Netflix hacked Combs' computer, broke into his home, or otherwise stole the footage, the Supreme Court says Combs, to quote his debut album, has no way out. Combs' legal team may think that it's unfair given that he didn't intend for the footage to go public, but that's his problem, not Netflix.
That's probably about right.
For similar reasons, any copyright claim Combs could bring against Netflix should fail under the fair use doctrine following excerpts of the copyrightable materials to be used for journalism and commentary, among other purposes. Do you want to comment on that? On fair use?
About the right the way it goes. Fair use and New York Times versus Sullivan. It is what it is. So, if you don't want this stuff out about you, then don't do it.
Well, that's easy said and done.
I know, but when you're talking about freaks, see, the other thing here is This is who youth are holding up as heroes. This kind of person. And I mean, okay, he's an entertainer. He's entitled to do what he wants to do this way. I mean, if you want to get your freak on, get your freak on, but it's still freak and it's not exactly the type of thing that, you know, wow, this is what you need to go out and act like. I mean, just think about it. The attack on manhood being what it is today, and you get somebody likes to go, well, anyway, the taste that he was talking about. So, you know, it's what it is, but it's not exactly anything I would tell anybody to emulate. Come on now.
Well, if the lawsuit is filed, it says it could become one of the biggest legal battles in Hollywood history.
It won't be much of anything because probably you will get some court that is very indisposed to be sensitive to Hollywood in the first damn place, jack them up. And if they do Hollywood, if it's federal, it'll wind up in front of the Ninth Circuit, which in a lawsuit involving the cast and crew of So You Want to Be a Millionaire against ABC and Disney, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal, the full 9 member panel said, we will teach this industry some values that they seem to ignore. And instead of giving the plaintiffs their requested seven some $1 million, they gave them $580 million in 2011. That was the full Ninth Circuit. The U.S. Supreme Court denied a hearing, left a ruling to stand, and Black Panther and Wakanda came about because ABC and Disney needed cash to pay the interest on the judgment that was still outstanding, that had ramped up to about $1.25 billion by the time the Panther movie came out, and the plaintiffs were threatening to take the Disney properties, most of Orlando and Anaheim and ABC properties, and they were literally over barrel. The britches were down, and they didn't have any KY to lubricate. So they came up with Black Panther, which was the highest grossing superhero movie of all time, and Black Americans patronized that heavily. And in fact, the place in the United States with the heaviest turnout was unfortunately Memphis, Tennessee, which I was acutely embarrassed by, particularly when we got to the scene at the end of the movie where the black men and black women were in active armed combat with each other, trying to kill each other off, and the women were treasonous to the state, and they went to some outside help, some people that lived in Africa who lived in caves where there was snow on the ground. Now just think about that. And then they had a situation where with this technology you never saw a male involved in it except pushing a cart in the background or with a ubangi disc in his lip, being a high priest or something. And they had a virtual fighter plane, but they couldn't find a black man to fly it. They had to get a former white CIA agent to fly their airplane. And Killmonger, who was the villain booed by the audience, was the one that actually sounded like Stan Lee's Black Panther.
Well,
So it was an embarrassing farce.
swinging it back to Diddy and the lawsuit, see, Netflix is in negotiations. They have agreed to buy Warner Brothers, is one of, and which would be one of the biggest deals in Hollywood history. Government regulators must decide whether Netflix. Hold on for a second. Government regulators must decide whether Netflix would be too powerful with key WBD assets. The major question is, who does Netflix actually compete with, right? Will buying Warner Brothers give Netflix too much power? I would think so. Does Netflix compete with only paid streaming services, a market where it dominates? So again, if Netflix is a powerful entity right about now, and listen, if they sit up here and they do buy Warner Brothers, they're going to be basically untouchable. So you're right. This Diddy lawsuit really isn't going anywhere. And I don't think he has the money or the muscle to go up against Netflix.
Oh, you can go against Netflix. Look at the cast and crew of So You Want to Be a Millionaire. They have ABC and Disney across the barrel. That was the point. The other thing is the alternative is Paramount trying to acquire Warner Brothers. And if there's a bunch of crooks, a whole lot of whom need to be in jail, it was at least the prior management of Paramount. It's a pathetic mess, and it's a stain on the American business environment. They are really, really some reprehensible people. I don't know about the new management that acquired Paramount, but Paramount was a Viacom property, and I used to work for them, and I had more hassles with the crooked bastards than you could think of. They cheated, they lied, they stole, they misappropriated, they violated contracts, and they'd always try to stay ahead of the cash flow problem by offering you a better contract. So same thing that the Ninth Circuit did with Disney and ABC. They just said they don't seem to understand the first principle of American contract law, and that is that all parties are expected to deal with each other in good faith. Therefore, perhaps this will get their attention. And the Ninth Circuit kicked their ass. Now, that's needed to happen to Paramount even more so than Disney, ABC, and I don't know what the current management of their Paramount is like, but the whole of Hollywood no longer can afford what it does. And if you want to see this graphically right before your eyes, next time you go to a movie, pay attention to the opening credits and see how many studios are in there. Uh, Metro Golden Mayer and another enterprise, the one where the boys up in the moon, and you got a whole bunch of studios, three, four, five, six of them in a major movie, and they each put up liability from which they get a share, even though they're from rival studios because they can't afford to do what they do anymore. And West Germany was financing Hollywood up until about 25 years ago, and they bailed and decided to put their money in now unified Germany. So that dried up. Probably the most corrupt, crooked, and ill run industry in the United States of America, with the most influence on how people think.